Good morning. Thank you all for being here this morning. We're here to announce charges related to various firearms and drug offenses here in the city of Rockford. Just today, and there's a press release from our office, 7 individuals are charged variously with either possession with intent to distribute or distribution of controlled substances. 3 people charged today. Controlled substances range from crack cocaine to fentanyl and heroin. We had 3 people charged last week with similar charges, and then 4 people also charged today with firearms offenses. These are individuals who are prohibited from carrying firearms based upon the fact that they have prior felony convictions. And the reason why we're here to talk about that today is because this is part of our mission as federal prosecutors and working with law enforcement in order to fight the violent crime problem in all of our cities, but in particular here in Rockford. Instrumental, and I think what is impressive about what law enforcement is doing here in Rockford, and we're going to continue to do and to get better at every single day, are the partnerships among law enforcement. If you just look at the people who are assembled up here today, standing right next to me is Maggie Schneider. She is the supervisor in charge of our Rockford U.S. Attorney's Office, and she does a phenomenal job in leading our group here. But the others as well. We have Dan O'Shea, the chief of police from Rockford, and you'll hear from him in a minute. We have the DEA associate special agent in charge, Kevin Scully. You'll hear from him in a little bit as well. We have from the ATF, the resident agent in charge, Leon Edmond. From the FBI, associate special agent in charge, Arist Anastasis. We have the sheriff, Sheriff Caruana from Winnebago County, and from the IRS Criminal Investigative Division, Dan Berwick. We all work together in order to do what we can to fight violent crime, and whether it's bringing, in general, whether it's bringing financial charges in a tax case, or if it's drug cases, or if it's firearms cases, that's what we do in order to try and fight violent crime here. These charges in particular are part of our overall efforts on Project Safe Neighborhoods and Project Guardian. Project Guardian is the Department of Justice overall effort to fight gun violence, and we do that oftentimes through gun prosecutions, just like the ones that we're bringing here today. The last thing that I would like to say before I turn it over to some of the other law enforcement partners up here to say a word or two, and then we can answer some questions, but I would like to thank very specifically the 2 federal prosecutors who are working on this case, Talia Bucci and Enza Tomlinson. They're outstanding prosecutors, and they've done an outstanding job on this particular case. And the last thing I would also like to thank, the last person, is the Winnebago County State's Attorney, Marilyn Height Ross, in her office. They are tremendous partners with us as well in helping to fight violent crime. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chief O'Shea for a word or two. Thanks.
First off, I would like to thank all the agents, the investigators, and the civilian personnel that worked on these cases in the previous weeks and months leading up to today. All the agencies standing up here today, the DEA, the ATF, the FBI, the state police, Winnebago County Sheriff, the other local partners, all work together. We contributed to the overall efforts that brought the culmination to these particular cases. The tenacity and skill of the assistant U.S. attorneys that prosecute these cases is second to none. They work tirelessly, morning, noon, and night, weekends, holidays, trying to work with our investigators and agents to bring these cases to conclusion. Second, I want to thank U.S. Attorney John Lausch. He's over the Northern District of Illinois, which includes Chicago and Rockford. As you can imagine, Rockford is the second city to Chicago, obviously, just based on population. Since Attorney Lausch came into command in 2017, he has made it a priority to work with the Rockford area enforcement, federal, state, county, and local, and come after the most violent criminals and drug traffickers in our area. Very appreciative of his efforts. Not only has he helped us on the enforcement end, he's also helped us with what he alluded to, Project Safe Neighborhoods. That's federal funding for the Rockford region that provides capital for not only enforcement measures and technology, but also preventative measures which help us down the road in the future. Lastly, I'm just going to give some words of advice to those who want to commit the violent crimes and commit the violent criminal acts and drug trafficking here in Rockford. Know that all these agencies up here, inclusive of the State's Attorney's Office in Winnebago County, we're coming after you. Either stop committing the violent crimes, stop doing the drug trafficking, But rest assured, it might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, but we're going to expend all of our efforts coming after you because we are going to make Rockford a safer region. Thank you.
Next, I'd like Sheriff Gary Caruana to say a word or two.
Thank you. I'd like to just reiterate what the chief has said and just the partnerships that we have with the local and federal. These type of arrests don't occur unless we have these type of partnerships. And just again to reiterate what Chief O'Shea said, continue this, and we're coming after you with a whole team, and we're going to continue until it stops. So thank you.
And last, I'd like from the DEA, Kevin Scully, to say a word. Thank you.
Good morning. The main point is the cooperation that we have with our federal, state, and local partners here today. Our job is to protect our citizens and to protect our community. It's something that this case is highlighted, that we had a great success in this operation, and we'll continue to do this every day. Thank you.
And with that, does anyone have any questions?
How important was information from citizens in these investigations?
And so, without speaking about these particular cases here, but generally speaking, information from citizens is critical. It's critical for all of our efforts in law enforcement. It's particularly critical in our violent crime efforts and in our efforts to fight drug trafficking as well. So we would strongly encourage citizens of Rockford and the surrounding area to continue to come forward, to talk with your local police officers, to talk with others in the community, to let us know who is driving the violence, who is illegally possessing guns, who is trafficking fentanyl and other drugs. It really helps us with our job.
At times, does it seem like a never-ending battle?
At times, I think, I'm not alone in saying this, I think a lot of prosecutors stand up here and we feel like there's always another case. And in fact, I remember being a young prosecutor in Chicago years ago, hearing that same question asked of Pat Fitzgerald, one of my former bosses and mentors. And what I think he would say, what I would say now is, it feels like it's never ending, but that doesn't mean that we're ever going to stop or that we're ever going to get tired or we're ever going to not put as much effort into it. And I think the people assembled here today will show you that that's exactly how we're proceeding on a federal, state, local level.
The collaboration of this size, is there any information as far as maybe the length or the magnitude, basically, roughly how long something of this size is going to take?
So, I mean, there's always investigations that are happening, throughout the entire district. And so, it's not publicly available. I can't tell you how long this particular operation lasted, but it takes time. We wish we could do things overnight. We can't, but we use various investigative techniques in order to make sure we have sufficient evidence to prove our cases. So.
I saw with Project Guardian that there was something about modern technologies to kind of come up with that
Yep.
kind of crime as well.
Yeah.
A little information on that, or maybe what that.
Absolutely, and that's a fantastic question. So one of the modern technologies that we're using, really law enforcement across the country, is NIBIN, which is the National Integrated Ballistics Information Network. Got that right, Leon, I think, right? But here's what that does. Shell casings that are recovered from a crime scene are recovered by law enforcement, and then they're put into a system, a computer system, into which they can be compared with shell casings that are recovered from other crime scenes. And in addition to that, when a firearm is recovered, that firearm is then fired, and a shell casing is taken from that. So you can compare, a shell casing from a crime scene, say, in Rockford, with a shell casing from a crime scene in Chicago, with, say, a firearm that's maybe recovered in the state of Wisconsin. And we could identify that there's a match at those two crime scenes and at that particular firearm. It is instrumental for all of law enforcement to use, not just ATF, but the FBI, DEA, the IRS, and with all of our local police departments and sheriffs to be able to piece together, who illegally possessed those firearms, who may have illegally purchased those firearms, and then importantly, who fired those firearms in order to commit acts of violence. And we use that every single day. It has been a game changer, and it is something we will continue to do better and use more of as we go forward. Thank you for that question. Great question.
I see too under the fentanyl is one of the drugs that we've covered. Can you, maybe you don't understand, talk about potency of these drugs and maybe if we're done?
Yes. So fentanyl is a synthetic opioid. It is oftentimes mixed in with heroin. It is much more powerful than morphine and much more powerful than heroin. And frankly, it's one of the reasons why it's mixed in sometimes. Individuals who are addicted to certain opiates are looking for a stronger high, and so that's where fentanyl comes into play. We're seeing it really across the nation. We're certainly seeing it in the Northern District of Illinois, including in Chicago and in Rockford as well. And so it's one of the drugs that we're particularly thoughtful on, and we want to really make sure we can do what we can to root out the trafficking of fentanyl because it is so harmful. Okay. Thank you very much for your time this morning. We appreciate it.